Your Excellency the Vice President, Ministers of State, Deputy Ministers, leadership of the majority in Parliament, let me very warmly welcome you to this one-day retreat. As you know, the government of Ghana has been in discussions with the IMF to consolidate government's ongoing economic reform programs. This represents another phase in our economic stabilization efforts to open up the fiscal space for government's socio-economic transformation effort. Such an effort in consummating relations with the IMF and other development partners requires that we have optimum consensus of the whole government to provide backing for the ongoing negotiations that we are entering into. The objectives of this retreat, which is under the title Understanding the Implications of Government's Relations with the IMF, are one, to establish the issues that have been identified by the IMF mission and the priorities of government in the context of present realities under the President's transformation agenda. It's also meant to achieve the objective of setting out Ghana's current economic reality and identify the constraints as well as the opportunities for our economic development. It will also aim to discuss the implications of a possible fund program for the budget 2015 and our medium-term development plan. And finally, to provide the government's team that will be proceeding to Washington to continue the negotiations with the IMF with a mandate for those negotiations, to be able to go into those negotiations with a mandate from Cabinet. The gathering in this room, therefore, today demonstrates the seriousness of the whole government in addressing the economic challenges that we as a government and nation have been dealing with for almost a year and a half now. All of you gathered here are aware of the purpose of this day-long retreat, like I have just outlined, and let me emphasize its utmost seriousness. If you all recall, we as a government have painstakingly engaged in a thorough series of policy measures aimed at stabilizing and consolidating our macroeconomic environment and restoring confidence in the economy. In May this year, we concluded a very successful national consensus on the economy in Senchi, producing substantial decisions about ways to improve our economic management, set priorities for socio-economic transformation, and instill better discipline in the management of our expenditures while bolstering our revenues. In July, I took a decision for Ghana to initiate discussions with the International Monetary Fund after extensive consultations, especially with the Presidential Advisory Group on the Economy. This decision was informed by careful and thorough deliberations against the backdrop of a series of policy measures that we ourselves had already initiated. As we begin this day-long retreat to inform and educate the entire government on our position moving forward to an IMF program, let me outline key principles that must inform our position as a country. As a social democratic government, we are credited to have pioneered the first groundbreaking negotiated program with the IMF in the early 1980s, when we successfully initiated major economic reforms. Thankfully, most of the leadership that spearheaded that process is still alive and strong, and some of them are still here with us. Dr. Kwesi Botwe, I think, is somewhere here, was one of the leaders of that process. Dr. Joe Abe, is he here? Thank you for all of you for joining us. Our own very vice president was much younger then and was also a part of the team. And even our current finance minister, Setekwe, was also very much younger then and was a part of the technical team. It is for this reason we decided to establish a negotiating team with Dr. Kwesi Botwe to lead the team and bringing on board the best talent in the field of such negotiations, because our belief was that the mixture of this talent would give us a better leverage in terms of our negotiation with the IMF. On the technical side, the team reflects both technical competence in the ministry with Seth Tekpe, a finance expert, leading the technical group, with the governor of the bank, also playing a lead role. We also included 3 ministries, the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations and the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, and also the Ministry of Trade and Industry as part of the negotiating team. I've gone at length to describe the composition of our negotiating team so that you're well aware of the fact that we do have a solid team under impeccable leadership and accessible to all members of government. I wish to state that I give the team my utmost support and we confer the mandate on them to lead our negotiation efforts with the International Monetary Fund. Let me caution, however, that we're embarking on this journey as one team with a common consensus. We must in this retreat present the issues objectively and debate them so that when we leave here, we all sing from the same hymn book with the same hymn page, the same hymn, and indeed the same stanza. As president, I remain focused on fixing our short-term bottlenecks so that we can proceed to the brighter medium and long-term prospects on a more solid and sustainable foundation. Long before we approached the IMF, all of you and citizens of this country have witnessed the seriousness with which government has elaborated clear commitments to reform in the management of our economy. These commitments are being pursued in 5 main areas. 1, the reduction of the wage bill. You are all witnesses to the many efforts that have been unfolding daily in tackling fraud and other malfeasance in payroll management. Indeed, we are intending to lay before Cabinet a more systematic set of policy measures on wage bill reduction that will reduce significantly the wage bill, remove fraud, and create a cleaner and leaner wage bill, which will then introduce better management of the payroll going forward. Secondly, expenditure reduction and improvement measures. Several initiatives have been undertaken and are underway to tighten expenditure controls, and as in the wage bill reduction initiative, address any leakages in the management of our public expenditures. We know there's a lot of waste in the public sector. We're dealing with this consistently in order to improve services to our citizens. Thirdly, revenue measures. Many of these are already underway and need to be strengthened. Fourthly, we're also committed to addressing the issue of our debt stock with both a short and long-term debt management strategy that seeks to arrive at a more sustainable debt. And fifthly, and not the least, a strong social development and social protection program. We continue to seek the accelerated development and delivery of efficient social services to our citizens and provide protection for the most vulnerable segments of our society, especially women, children, and the disabled. And we expect that this will form a key part of the program we agree with the IMF. It is in furthering these commitments that we seek the partnership of the IMF so that collectively we can maintain the discipline required to turn short-term reform into medium-term transformation. I expect also that we'll have a strong engagement with civil society, organized labor, all our social partners, and indeed also our international development partners, in order that we can achieve a sustainable buy-in into the economic adjustment program we intend to begin in 2015. Ladies and gentlemen, signing onto an IMF program has implications on the economy and our social development agenda. I would like you gathered here to debate the diverse implications and formulate strategies for communicating these to our citizens. But most of all, there are real benefits in the long run for our economy, our society, and our people. Let us garner support amongst ourselves to ensure that we fully understand the fund program so that we can explain it better and be prepared to implement the program to realize its intended objectives. I thank all of you for coming and expect that over the next 7 hours or so, you will pay your utmost attention so that you can understand the program we're entering into and also give the team the appropriate mandate to enter negotiations on our behalf. I thank you all very much for your kind attention. So now we will go into our work, and